Hello, Sid Roth here. Welcome to my world, where it's naturally supernatural. You know, sometimes I kid with people and they say, I watch you on TV almost every day. And I said, well, I'll tell you a trade secret. I'm watching you through your television. They don't know what to make, and I'm just kidding, you know. However, my guest has spent 30 years studying the mark of the beast. And he says our computers and our television sets have the capability for anyone from the government on down at will, whether they're turned on or not, to watch what we're doing right in our office, right in our home. This technology is getting out of control. Now, you're probably familiar with my guest, Paul McGuire. You might have seen him on Fox News, O'Reilly, History Channel. I mean, one of the top viewing shows. But as a young man, you had quite a background. You were raised to hate Christians. You thought the answer was in science and the New Age. So you go out to the University of Missouri, where you're really debating Christians and you're going to put them in their place. Guess what his major was? You'll never guess, so I shouldn't have said guess. His major was altered states of consciousness. That's a major? And he's in class one day and he hears a voice. What does the voice say to you?
It was an audible voice which said, surrender to the dark forces within.
And what'd you do about that?
I freaked out. I never heard an audible voice before, and I looked around to see if anybody had heard it.
Okay, so he's tearing these Christians apart, but their love is kind of contagious. So he goes to a retreat meeting, and he says, oh no, they're all hypocrites. I'm leaving this place. But he doesn't have a car, so he hitchhikes. Tell me about your adventure.
Well, right after the religious retreat, which confirmed my worst suspicions about Christianity being a country club religion, the place looks like a field of dreams, the movie, the cornfields in the middle of nowhere. I stick out my thumb on the road. A Pentecostal preacher and his wife picks me up in their car. And being from New York City, I said, okay, great, we're in the cornfields, and there's probably a lot of Pentecostal preachers and their wife. They share with me the gospel of Jesus Christ.
He is the only way to heaven. He will save
Then they let me out on the road again. I stick out my thumb again. Within seconds, a station wagon pulls up. It's a guy in a dark three-piece suit like an undertaker. He's a Bible salesman.
Does he have many Bibles in his car?
Yes, he has, I don't know, 100 King James Bibles, you know, the big thick ones.
Oh, I know.
So he's driving down the back roads of Missouri. He lets go of the steering wheel. It looked like a 65-pound King James Bible. He's looking at me, not the freeway, and he's preaching, and he gets right down to it. He says, did you know that you're a sinner and that if you don't accept Jesus Christ into your life, you're going to go to hell? And you need to be born again. I mean, that basically was it. I'm from New York. I didn't even believe in the word sin. That was an archaic concept. And he says, you want to pull up the road and say the sinner's prayer? And I said, yeah. But inside my mind, I'm going, great. He's a religious axe murderer pervert. He's gonna chop my head off before he does whatever, and bury me in the bushes and say a couple of prayers over me. So I prayed with him. It was a real short prayer. Jesus Christ, I ask you to forgive me for my sins. I ask you to come into my life and make me born again. So I forgot about it.
So then a few days later, he's in New York. He's at a place called the Lambs Club. Briefly, what occurred?
Well, what happened was I was discussing my experience with people who had been witnessing to me. And as I was sharing this hitchhiking experience, a girl who we had never met before came over to me and said, I couldn't help but overhearing your conversation. She said, I'm a minister's daughter. I was wrestling with these same questions as Jesus Lord. And for some reason, she looks right at me and she says, do you believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God? And I'd never said this before, but the words blurted out of me, I believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. At that moment, the sky cracked open and I saw God, not in a physical sense, but a spiritual sense. And I knew instantaneously that all the cosmic consciousness, astral projection, altered states of consciousness, all that stuff was illusions and false, and I knew that Jesus Christ was the Son of God instantaneously.
That is God. Now, what happens next is so amazing because he then devotes his life to studying prophecy and studying what's going on in the world, and then God starts giving him supernatural dreams to direct his research. Tell me a few things you found out about the one world currency.
Well, first of all, I do a tremendous amount of research from mainstream sources. It has to be documented, it has to be credible. Number two is I study Bible prophecy and the Old Testament and New Testament. But the third component is I do research where the Holy Spirit leads me and guides me into specific areas of research. So as I'm researching this, I noticed that in the Old Testament, the Tower of Babel, or Babylon, is the world's first one world government, one world religion, one world economic system. That's clue one. Then I get into Revelation 13 and I read about the one world government, the one world economic system, one world religion, the false prophet, the religious false prophet, and the Antichrist. And then I see that in Revelation, it talks about a global government and a global economic system. And you can't buy or sell without getting the mark of the beast. And then I realized that everything that was predicted 2,000 years ago is coming to life in this world now, even as we speak.
Give me one fact that'll knock me out.
Well, one fact is that the international banking elite have planned for there to be a world currency by 2018. Now, that doesn't mean they'll hit the date, but the target date is 2018, and they intend to bring in a one world currency called the Phoenix, which just happens to be the bird on the back of the dollar bill. That bird on the back of the dollar bill is not an eagle, it's a phoenix.
And what is the phoenix symbolic of?
It's an occult, ancient occult symbol that goes back to Phoenicia.
So what is going to happen to our currency when there's a new currency? I want to find out. How about you?
Right back to It's Supernatural. We now return to It's Supernatural.
Okay, so we're headed towards this one world currency system. And my natural question is, what's going to happen to the U.S. dollar? I have a personal need to know.
The personal dollar is bye-bye. And the proof of that would be the super billionaire George Soros that most people are aware of. I was watching him on the BBC speak to about 25 million Europeans live, and he quite openly spoke about the fact that the plan is to devalue the dollar. And the purpose for devaluing the dollar is you can't bring in a world currency if you have a strong dollar. So you have to lower the dollar to equalize the playing field. That way you can merge the currencies into a one world currency. And he came out and basically said that on BBC. He was very open. So he said the goal is to devalue the dollar, and then he said we're going to bring in a one world currency. But then he also said that part of the goal is to transfer the wealth out of the American middle class and middle class from other nations, transfer the wealth out of the middle class into third world nations, which some people may think is Christians, but it's going to go into the hands of dictators. So it's going to reduce the dollar, but also it's going to destroy the middle class. You'll have an elite upper class, and you'll have a giant lower class or worker class.
Now, lots of things are going on simultaneously. I don't think I've ever seen a time in history where so much Bible prophecy is happening.
Well, you're absolutely right. There has never been more prophetic signs coming true in one generation to this extent ever before in the history of mankind. So we're not just talking about economically and politically and spiritually, we're talking about scientifically and in every realm of society. We are moving at lightning speed to the tribulation period, and we're moving at lightning speed to the return of the Messiah. The #1 prophetic time clock is Israel, God's prophetic supersign,
right,
which began as a nation in 1948.
Okay, you have, through your dreams and visions and Bible prophecy and research, predicted things that would happen. Tell me a few.
A number of years ago, I was doing research, and the Lord began to supernaturally tell me to write about and investigate people. And this was before 9/11. This is before the trade centers went down. The Lord told me to investigate Saddam Hussein, Osama bin Laden, the Twin Trade Towers, weapons of mass destruction, EMPs, Iraq, Iran, and all of those geopolitical leaders and events that became popular language after 9/11. But I was researching and talking about it before 9/11 prophetically because I was open to the supernatural leading of the Holy Spirit.